When the wedding is over and married life is just beginning, some surprises can turn everything upside down. What do you do if a man brings his mother into the house and announces that she is now the rightful lady of the home? Sometimes a polite suggestion can sound like a bolt from the blue. Enjoy listening. The entryway of their own house. Nell stands by the door, staring at the suitcases. Nearby, Zanta towers in a raspberry-colored puffer jacket like a monument, carefully inspecting the wallpaper. Jim looks away when Nell turns to him. "Wait, why is your mother here?" Her voice breaks. "We agreed we'd live in my mom's house." He shrugs, but his voice is firm, almost defiant. "My mother is moving in too. You can squeeze in wherever you want, and Mom and I will take the master bedroom." Nell opens her mouth but can't say a word. Footsteps come from the living room. Laura, her mom, steps into the hallway wearing a knitted cardigan. Her face is calm, but her eyes are sharp. She heard everything. But it all started 3 weeks earlier. The kitchen on Maple Street smelled of apple pie and freshly brewed tea. Nell sat at the old dining table covered with a small floral oilcloth, scrolling through a wedding dress catalog on her tablet. Her mom poured tea into the cups, the ones with blue forget-me-nots that had once belonged to her grandmother. "I don't get these corsets," Nell said, tapping another fluffy dress on the screen. "How are you even supposed to breathe in that?" "I'm not some kind of princess." Laura chuckled and slid a cup toward her. "You don't have to be a princess. What matters is that you feel comfortable and beautiful, of course." She was 52, slim and wiry, with short hair and surprisingly young eyes. She had worked as a nurse in a hospital for over 20 years and had seen it all. She had learned not to judge too quickly, but also not to fool herself about people. Nell set the tablet aside and reached for the pie. At 26, she was still living with her mom, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because they were happy together. After her parents' divorce, when Nell was 7, her father disappeared into a new family. He sent birthday wishes, and that was it. Her mom became both parent and best friend. "Mom, I wanted to tell you something." Nell bit her lip. "Jim has mentioned the house a few times. I mean, where we'll live." "And what did you say?" "That you have a house in the suburbs, the one Grandpa built. That it's empty, and we could." Laura nodded and took a sip of tea. The house on the edge of town really had been standing almost unused. 2 stories, a yard. After her father died, she couldn't bring herself to move there. Too many memories. The apartment on Maple Street was simpler, closer to work. "I've already thought about it," her mom said quietly. "I want to put the house in your name before the wedding, so you'll have your own little nest." Nell froze, the pie halfway to her mouth. "Mom, are you serious?" "That's your property." "It's mine, so I get to decide." Laura smiled, but there was a hint of tiredness in it. "Nell, I'm not going to live forever. I'll feel calmer knowing you and your husband are living separately, in your own home. I'll stay here, won't get in the way of the newlyweds. You'll come visit. But we could live together." "No." Her voice grew firmer. 2 women running one kitchen is always a war. It's better if you have your own space, and I'm used to peace and quiet in my older years. Nell felt a lump rise in her throat. Her mom was giving her the house just like that, no conditions, no reproaches. As always, she was giving everything she had. "I'll go to the office next week and file the paperwork," Laura continued. "Everything will be ready by the wedding. You'll give your husband a surprise." "Mom." Nell stood up, hugged her from behind, resting her forehead on her shoulder. "Thank you." Laura gently stroked her hand. She didn't say anything, but a vague, unexplainable anxiety stirred in her chest. Jim seemed like a good man and engineer, didn't drink, didn't smoke, treated Nell well enough. But something in his eyes whenever he talked about his mother made Laura uneasy. Too much caution, too many excuses for someone else's behavior. Still, she kept quiet. Her daughter's eyes were glowing, she was in love. Who was she to interfere with advice? On Saturday, Jim came over with his mother so they could get to know each other better. Nell warned her mom in advance, baked a Charlotte cake, and set the table in the living room. Salads, cold cuts, a hot main dish. Laura changed into a strict blue blouse and fixed her hair. The doorbell rang exactly at 3 in the afternoon. Jim looked tense in dark jeans and a shirt, his hair slicked back. Tall and broad-shouldered, yet he somehow hunched when his mother was nearby. Zanta entered the apartment as if she were conducting an inspection. Stocky, with teased hair, wearing a burgundy suit and heavy gold earrings. Her face was large and commanding, her gaze sharp and assessing. "Hello, Laura." She extended her hand lazily, as if doing a favor. "Zanta. Finally meeting you." "Hello, come in, please. Take off your coat." Laura smiled politely, taking the coat. Nell hugged Jim and kissed him on the cheek. He smelled of cologne and anxiety. In the living room, Zanta sat down on the couch and looked around at the walls, the furniture, the carpet. Her face stayed unreadable, but her lips tightened. "Cozy," she finally said, though her tone suggested the opposite. "Though the wallpaper is a bit old. And the furniture too. Probably from the last century." Laura, pouring tea, nodded calmly. "Yes, my parents bought it. But it's solid, well made." "Well, that's true. Back then they built things to last." Zanta picked up her cup and examined it from all sides, as if checking for chips. "These days everything is disposable." Jim rubbed his hands nervously. "Mom, enough about the furniture. Let's talk about the wedding. And what is there to say?" Zanta took a small sip of tea. "It's going to be modest, I assume. About 30 people, some cafe." Nell nodded. "Yes, we didn't want anything big. Just close family. Reasonable." The future mother-in-law smirked. "Why throw money away? Though, of course, in our time weddings were different. We had 120 guests, tables overflowing. Right, son?" "I remember, Mom," Jim nodded obediently. Nell felt a stab of irritation. Zanta seemed to be hinting that their wedding was somehow incomplete, second-rate. Laura brought in the main dish, roast meat with potatoes, set it on the table, and started serving. "Oh, so much meat." Zanta grimaced. "I can't have that, cholesterol." "You should have warned me, I would have said something in advance." "I'm sorry, I didn't know," Laura said calmly, removing the meat from her plate. "I can make you eggs if you like." "Oh, never mind. I'll just have the potatoes." The next half hour passed in tense silence. Zanta ate slowly and critically, occasionally tossing out remarks like "a bit too salty" or "the potatoes are kind of dry." Jim ate without looking up. Nell and her mom exchanged glances. When Laura brought out the Charlotte cake, the mother-in-law finally perked up. "Oh, a pie. I hope it's not store-bought." "Homemade," Nell said with a tight smile. "I baked it myself." "Well, let's see." Zanta cut herself a piece and tasted it. Not bad. Though there aren't enough apples, and you could have added more cinnamon. But for a first try, it'll do. Nell clenched her fists under the table. For a first try. She had been baking Charlotte since she was 10, her mom had taught her. As if sensing her daughter's tension, Laura gently touched her shoulder. "Nell, why don't I clear the dishes, and you talk about the wedding for now?" "Yes, speaking of the wedding." Zanta set her fork aside and took on a businesslike expression. "Laura, tell me, besides this apartment, you own other property too, don't you?" Jim mentioned some kind of house. Laura froze with the plates in her hands. Nell felt a chill run down her spine. "There's a house in the suburbs," her mom answered calmly. "My father built it." "Oh," the future mother-in-law drawled, and something predatory slipped into her voice. "I see. Is it big?" 2 stories, with a small plot of land. Perfect for a young couple. Zanta turned to Jim. "See, sweetheart? I told you everything is working out just fine." Laura walked into the kitchen without replying. Nell followed her with her eyes, then looked at Jim. He lowered his gaze. "Laura." Zanta raised her voice toward the kitchen. "You're not planning to live there with them, are you? In that house?" Laura came back, wiping her hands on a towel. "No. I'll stay in the apartment. Young people need their own space." "Very wise," the mother-in-law nodded like an expert. A mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law under one roof is always trouble. I couldn't live with my husband's parents either. We had to move out. Nell bit her lip. Zanta was talking about her as if she weren't even there. After the guests left, Jim lingered by the door. Zanta had already gone down to the car. Sorry about my mom, he said, rubbing the back of his head guiltily. She's just very straightforward. Always says what she thinks. That's not straightforwardness, Nell crossed her arms. That's being rude. Nell, try to understand. She worries, she's afraid of losing me. It's hard for her to be alone after the divorce. And how many years has it been since the divorce? 12. But still what? Nell felt irritation turning into anger. She gets to say nasty things, and we're supposed to just put up with it? Jim hugged her, pulling her close. Not nasty things, she's just like that. Nell, please, be patient, okay? She'll get used to you, she'll soften up. I know she can be good. Nell pressed her face into his chest. She wanted to believe him. She wanted everything to be simple and happy. Fine, she muttered. But if she says one more time that my Charlotte isn't good enough, I'm throwing that Charlotte right in her face. Jim laughed and kissed the top of her head. Deal. I'll be your Charlotte's personal bodyguard. He left, and Nell went back into the apartment. Her mom was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea, staring out the window. Mom, are you okay? Nell sat down next to her. Yes, sweetheart. Laura turned to her, and that same anxiety she tried to hide was in her eyes. Just be careful, okay? With that woman. She's the type who thinks her son belongs to her. Jim won't let her hurt me. Nell said it more to herself than to her mom. Laura stayed silent, but thought to herself, we'll see. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday, 2 weeks away. Nell rushed around shops, chose a dress, arranged things with the cafe. Jim helped book the car, found a photographer, made the guest list. They met every evening, planned, dreamed. Zanta called Jim every day, sometimes twice a day. Nell caught fragments of their conversations. Mom, that's enough, I already said no. No, Nell is choosing this, not you. Mom, please don't start. One evening they were sitting in a cafe, discussing the banquet menu. Jim was focused on his phone, replying to a message. Your mom again? Nell asked, trying to hide her irritation. Yes. She's worried they won't seat her at the main table. Jim, there are 30 people. All the tables are the same. But you know she likes everything to be proper. Nell leaned back in her chair and looked at her fiancé. He looked tired, worn out. Listen, maybe it would be easier to skip the wedding altogether. Just sign the papers at City Hall and that's it? Nell, I'm sorry. I know she goes too far sometimes, but after the wedding everything will settle down, you'll see. She'll calm down, understand that you're my wife and that I'm not abandoning her. Are you sure? Absolutely. Nell wanted to believe him. A week before the wedding, Laura called her daughter into the kitchen. A folder with documents lay on the table. Here, she handed it to Nell. The house is yours now. Officially. Nell opened the folder and saw the ownership certificate. Her name. Her last name. Mom, her voice trembled. Thank you. Laura hugged her. It gives me peace of mind to know you have a roof over your head. Maybe you'll change your mind? Come live with us? No, Nell. It's your home. You and Jim need to build your family on your own, without my interference. Nell hugged her mom tightly, burying her face in her shoulder. She smelled her familiar cream and homemade pie. I'll come visit every week, she whispered. I promise. Come visit but live your life. The wedding took place in a small cafe with panoramic windows. 30 people, family, friends, co-workers. Nell wore a simple white dress without a corset, Jim a gray suit. Everything was modest, warm, and family-like. Zanta showed up in a bright red dress with a heavy necklace, as if she meant to outshine the bride. She sat down at the table and critically examined the place settings. Paper napkins. Couldn't you use fabric ones? Jim stopped her. Mom, please. Not today. She pursed her lips in offense but fell silent. The host kept things lively, guests ate, drank, danced. Nell and Jim swayed in a slow dance, and in those moments it felt like everything would be fine, like love would overcome anything. After the celebration, as guests were leaving, Laura came up to the newlyweds. She was holding a small box tied with a ribbon. My children. She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. This is for you. Nell opened the box. Inside were a set of keys and the house documents. Mom, but you already dashed, now I'm giving it to you officially. In front of everyone. Laura hugged her daughter, then Jim. Live happily. The house is yours. Jim beamed. Laura, thank you. Thank you so much. We didn't expect this. I know, Laura nodded. That's why I'm giving it to you so you have something to start with. Zanta was standing just a few steps away and heard every word. Her face turned to stone, her lips pressed into a thin line. She stepped forward. Laura, what a generous gift. Her voice was even, but cold. An entire house. That must be quite expensive. Laura turned to her and smiled politely, without warmth. It's not about the price, Zanta. It's about the children being happy. Oh yes, of course. The mother-in-law nodded, but her gaze stayed hard. Just make sure that happiness doesn't turn into a burden. A house isn't just walls, it's expenses and responsibility too. They'll manage. Laura didn't continue the conversation. She turned and headed for the exit. Nell watched her go, feeling something tighten in her chest. Then she looked at Zanta. She stood there with a stony face, gripping her glass as if she wanted to crush it. Jim wrapped an arm around Nell's shoulders and pulled her close. Everything will be fine, he whispered. You'll see. Nell nodded, but inside her stirred that same anxiety she had felt from her mom, vague, but persistent. Zanta finished her champagne, set the glass on the table with a light clink, and walked out without saying goodbye. The guests dispersed. The newlyweds drove home to their new house. 2 stories, a veranda, a small yard, and an old apple tree by the gate. Nell put the key in the lock and turned it. The door opened. Welcome home, Mrs. Harris. Jim lifted her in his arms and carried her over the threshold. She laughed and wrapped her arms around his neck. In that moment, everything felt right, but somewhere at the edge of her mind, a quiet, insistent voice whispered, "Be careful." The first week in the new house felt like one long honeymoon haze to Nell. She and Jim slept in late, had breakfast on the veranda, planned renovations. He walked through the rooms with a tape measure, measuring things, jotting notes in a notebook, talking about remodeling, how they could knock down the wall between the kitchen and the living room, make a walk-in closet upstairs. Nell listened with half an ear, mostly enjoying the moment itself. Her house. Her husband. Their life. Sunlight filtered through the old apple trees, the veranda smelled of freshly cut grass. It felt like only happiness lay ahead. But on the third day, Zanta called. Jim was sitting on the living room couch, unpacking boxes. His phone vibrated, Mom lit up on the screen. He glanced at Nell with a guilty look and answered. Hi, Mom. No, we haven't finished unpacking yet. Mom, we have a lot to do. Nell kept hanging photos on the walls, pictures of her with her mom at the sea, her graduation, childhood snapshots. She listened to the conversation out of the corner of her ear. Mom, we just moved in. Of course I didn't forget. No, I'm not abandoning you. Mom, please, stop. The call lasted about 20 minutes. Jim spoke softly, conciliatory, almost pleading. When he hung up, his face looked tired. Everything okay? Nell sat down beside him. Yes. Mom's just worried. Says it's hard for her alone, she misses me. Maybe we should invite her over for the weekend? Jim flinched too sharply. No, well, not now. Let's get properly settled first, okay? Nell nodded, but something pricked inside her. He always defended his mother, justified her, but when it came to meeting her, he backed away, as if afraid of them being in the same space for too long. The calls became more frequent. Every evening, sometimes twice a day. Zanta called while they were having dinner, watching a movie, going to bed. Each time, Jim jumped up, took the phone, and went into another room. Nell caught fragments. Mom, what do you want from me? I can't come right now, we're renovating. No, Nell isn't against you, stop making things up. Mom, I'm tired. One evening, she couldn't take it anymore. They were sitting in the kitchen, Jim once again glued to his phone, typing a message. His face was tense, brows drawn together. Her again? Nell set her cup on the table louder than she meant to. Nell, don't start. I'm not starting, I'm asking. Jim, this isn't normal. She calls every day. We can't even talk properly. He looked up, irritation flashing in his eyes. She's my mother. She's lonely. Don't you understand that? I do. But we're newlyweds. We need time for each other too. Jim put the phone down and rubbed his face with his hands. Nell, just be patient, okay? She'll get used to me being married. She just needs time. How much time? A month? A year? 10 years? He didn't answer. He stood up and left the kitchen. Nell stayed where she was, staring out the window. Outside, it was getting dark. The apple trees swayed in the wind. By the end of the second week, a strange atmosphere settled over the house. Jim grew quiet, often went to another room to take calls. He came back gloomy, distant. Nell tried to shake him out of it, suggested watching a movie, going for a walk, driving into the city. He nodded, agreed, but seemed far away. One morning, Nell woke up alone. Jim was sitting on the veranda, talking on the phone. His voice was quiet but anxious. She walked up to the door and listened. Mom, I understand. Yes, I know it's hard for you. No, I didn't forget about you. Mom, what do you want? To move? Mom, we have. Okay, I'll think about it. I promise, I'll think about it. Nell froze. Move? She stepped back from the door and returned to the bedroom. Her heart was pounding. Zanta wanted to move in? With them? But why hadn't Jim said anything? When he came back, she pretended to be asleep. He lay down beside her, tossed and turned for a long time, sighed, then finally went still. Nell lay awake until morning. The next day at dinner, Jim spoke first. He cut his meatball into tiny pieces, not looking up. Nell, I've been thinking. About what? Well, Mom called. She says she's uncomfortable in her rented apartment. The landlady keeps picking on her, too noisy, too messy. Mom's tired. Nell set her fork down and looked at her husband. And what are you suggesting? Maybe she could come stay with us for a bit. Just for a couple of weeks. Until she finds a decent place. Nell stayed silent. Everything inside her tightened, but she forced a smile. Of course. Let her come. She is your mom, after all. Jim let out a breath of relief. Thank you, Nell. You have no idea how much easier that makes things for me. I knew you'd understand. And where is she going to stay? The rooms upstairs aren't ready yet. Well, we can put a fold-out sofa in the living room. Or... He hesitated. We could quickly fix up one room upstairs. Nell nodded. She wanted to ask why he couldn't help his mother find another apartment, why it had to be their place. But she stayed silent. She didn't want to fight. She wanted to be a good, understanding wife. Just for a couple of weeks, right? She clarified. Of course. A month at most. She'll find something suitable and move out. Okay. Jim reached across the table, hugged her, and kissed her on the forehead. I knew I married a smart woman. Nell smiled, but inside her that anxiety stirred again, the same feeling she had at the wedding, when Zanta looked at the house with that stone-cold face. Zanta arrived 2 days later. A taxi pulled up to the gate at 10 in the morning. Jim ran out to meet her and opened the door. His mother stepped out in a raspberry-colored puffer jacket and looked the house over with an appraising eye. Well, the house isn't bad, she said instead of greeting them. Though the paint on the fence is peeling. It should be touched up. Mom, come in. Jim hugged her and kissed her on the cheek. The driver started unloading the luggage. Nell, standing on the porch, went pale. 2 huge duffel bags, a worn suitcase, a box of pots, and 3 more bags. "Zanta, are you planning to stay long?" slipped out of Nell's mouth. The mother-in-law turned around and smiled broadly, but her eyes stayed cold. "Well, Nell, I don't know how long it'll take me to find an apartment. I decided to bring everything I might need. You never know." Nell bit her lip. Everything she might need looked like she was moving in for good. Jim hauled the suitcases into the house, puffing and sweating. Zanta followed, pulling off her jacket and scanning the entryway. "The wallpaper is old," she stated. "It needs replacing. And this linoleum Should-Go tiles would look much more modern." Nell clenched her fists. "This is my house." She wanted to scream. "Mine." But she stayed silent. "Mom, come on, I'll show you your room." Jim took his mother by the arm and led her upstairs. Nell stayed in the entryway, staring at the luggage. Far too much for a couple of weeks. Zanta settled in quickly. She took over a room upstairs, hung her dresses in the closet, lined up jars of creams and bottles of perfume on the shelves. Then she came downstairs and went straight to the kitchen. Nell was cooking lunch, frying chicken with vegetables. The mother-in-law stood beside her and peered into the pan. "Oh, Nell, why are you using so much oil? That's unhealthy." "It's fine," Nell tried to answer politely. "That way the chicken won't burn." Well. Zanta shook her head. "Back in my day, we knew how to cook without all that extra fat. My son will end up with cholesterol problems." Nell clenched her teeth and kept cooking. Zanta didn't leave. She stood there, commenting on every move. "The vegetables should be cut smaller. Salt is better added at the end. The heat is too high, it'll burn." By the time dinner was ready, Nell was ready to explode, but she held it in. She set the table and called Jim. Jim ate with appetite, praising the food. "Nell, it's delicious, as always." Zanta picked at the chicken with her fork and frowned. "A bit dry. And yes, too much oil. I would have cooked it differently." Nell lowered her eyes and silently finished her portion. Jim kept eating as if he heard nothing. The following days turned into a test. Zanta woke up early. By 7 in the morning she was already clattering pots in the kitchen. Nell woke to the noise, things falling, banging, sizzling. She came downstairs and saw her mother-in-law cooking breakfast. "Good morning, Nell." Zanta smiled widely. "I made some oatmeal for Jim. He's loved it since he was a child." A pot of oatmeal stood on the stove, and next to it a frying pan with eggs. "Thanks, but I usually make breakfast myself." Nell tried to stay calm. "Oh, come on, don't stress. I'll help out now. You work, you get tired. Let a mother take care of her son." Nell poured herself some coffee and sat down at the table. Jim came downstairs sleepy, in sweatpants and a t-shirt. He saw his mom at the stove and lit up. "Mom, you made oatmeal." "Thanks. Eat up, sweetheart. It's good for your health." Nell finished her coffee and stood up. She didn't stay for breakfast. By the end of the first week of her mother-in-law's stay, Nell felt like a guest in her own home. Zanta ran the kitchen, rearranged dishes, moved food around in the fridge. Nell went in to get something and couldn't find it. "Zanta, where's the sugar?" "Oh, I moved it to the top cabinet. It's more convenient. But I'm used to keeping it in the lower one." "Nell, trust me, this is more practical. I've done it this way my whole life." Nell said nothing. She took the sugar from the top cabinet, feeling everything boil inside her, but she forced it down. That evening, she tried to talk to Jim. They were lying in bed. He was scrolling through his phone. "Jim, your mom is changing too much in the house. I'm uncomfortable." "Nell, she just wants to help. But this is my house. I'm used to my own order." He put the phone aside and turned to her. "Our house. And Mom is here temporarily. Just be patient, okay? Don't start drama." "I'm not starting drama. I'm asking for my space to be respected." "Nell, enough. His voice turned hard. I'm tired. Let's sleep. He turned away and pulled the blanket over himself. Nell lay there, staring at the ceiling. Tears rose to her throat, but she didn't let them fall. In the second week, there was an incident with the photos. Nell came home from work and discovered that the family pictures she had hung in the living room were gone. Only paintings remained, landscapes and still lives. She found Jim in the garage, fiddling with tools. Jim, where are the photos? Oh, that. Mom said they don't fit the interior. I took them down and put them in a box. Upstairs, in the storage room. Nell felt something snap inside her. What do you mean, don't fit? Those are our family photos. Nell, come on. We'll hang them back up later, after the renovations. Jim, this is my house. My mom gave it to me. He straightened up and looked at her coldly. Our house. You're my wife. It's shared. Or do you think otherwise? Nell stepped back. There was something foreign, unfamiliar in his eyes. I think your mother is allowing herself too much. My mother is a guest, and you are obligated to be polite to her. He turned away and went back to his tools. The conversation was over. Nell went upstairs to the storage room, found the box with the photos, and pulled out a picture of her and her mom at the seaside, both tanned, happy. She clenched it in her hands. She wanted to call her mother, to complain, but pride stopped her. I'm an adult, I'll handle it myself, she told herself. Laura came on Saturday, bringing a berry pie, Nell's favorite. She called ahead and said she'd only stop by briefly. When she entered the house, Zanta was setting the table. She turned around and looked Laura up and down. Oh, Laura, what a surprise. You should have warned us, I would have cooked something. I warned Nell, Laura said with a polite smile. I didn't want to be a bother. Oh, come on, what bother? Zanta laughed loudly, though there was no warmth in it. I'm practically the lady of the house now. Laura said nothing and went into the kitchen. Nell hugged her tight, for a long moment. Her mom stroked her back. How are you, sweetheart? Fine. Nell lied, her voice trembling. Laura looked at her closely, then glanced around the kitchen. Everything was different. The dishes were in the wrong places, different towels, even the curtains had been changed. Doing renovations? She asked quietly. No, it's just... Nell hesitated. I just put things in order, Zanta cut in, appearing in the doorway. Everything was arranged inconveniently. I'm an experienced woman, I know how it should be. Laura nodded and didn't argue. She sat down at the table and cut the pie. Help yourselves. Zanta took a piece, bit into it, and grimaced. Too many berries. And the dough is a bit dry. Nell, do you even know how to bake pies? I'll teach you, I have a family recipe. Nell clenched her fists under the table. Laura placed a hand on her shoulder quietly, calming. Thank you, Zanta, but Nell bakes just fine. I taught her myself. Well, you may have taught her, but there's always more to learn. The mother-in-law set her plate aside. By the way, Laura, I've been meaning to ask, are you really planning to sit in that apartment on Maple Street for the rest of your life? All alone, it must be boring. Laura raised an eyebrow. I'm comfortable there. Comfortable in a one-bedroom? Zanta waved her hand. You could move here, the house is big, plenty of rooms. This is the young couple's home. They need their own space. Oh, what space? Zanta scoffed. Family should stick together. I live with my son, and it's perfectly fine. Laura stood up and began gathering her things. Nell, I should go. Call me if you need anything. Nell walked her to the car. Laura hugged her daughter and held her close. My girl, if it gets too hard, come stay with me. You're always welcome. Mom, I'll manage. Nell tried with all her strength to stay composed. Jim promised she'll move out soon. He promised. Laura paused. Just watch carefully, Nell. People show who they really are when they think they've already won. She got into the car and drove off. Nell stood by the gate, watching until the car disappeared around the corner. She went back into the house. Zanta was standing by the living room window, looking at her with a satisfied smile. By the end of the second week, Nell was at her limit. Her mother-in-law had taken over not only the kitchen but the living room as well. In the evenings, she planted herself in front of the TV, flipped through channels, demanded silence. "Nell, don't bang the dishes in the kitchen, I'm watching my show." "Jim, bring me a blanket, it's chilly." Jim watched TV with his mother, sometimes laughing at jokes on the screen. One evening, Nell couldn't take it anymore. "Jim, we need to talk." "Now's not a good time, Mom's watching her show." "Jim, your mother has been living here for 2 weeks. When is she moving out?" He grimaced, stood up, and led her into the hallway. "Nell, she hasn't found an apartment yet. Give her time." "How much time? A month? Half a year? I don't know." He raised his voice. "What do you want from me? To throw my mother out on the street? I want us to live alone. We are living alone. Mom is here temporarily. Jim, she's running this place like it's her own." "Because it is her house," he blurted out. Nell froze. She stared at him with wide eyes. "What?" Jim cut himself off, realizing he'd said too much, and tried to fix it. "I mean, well, she lives here, so it's her home too. Temporarily." Nell slowly shook her head. "This is my house, Jim. My mom gave it to me. But you're my wife. That makes the house shared. And my mom is my family, she has the right to be here." Nell turned around, went upstairs, locked herself in the bedroom. She lay down on the bed and buried her face in the pillow. Finally, she let the tears fall. In the third week, Zanta took over the study. Nell went in to get some documents and found that her mother-in-law had set up a workshop there. A sewing machine on the desk, fabrics, threads, needles. Boxes of buttons, ribbons, lace on the shelves. "Zanta, what is this?" "Oh, Nell." The mother-in-law turned around with a smile. "I decided to take up handicrafts. I need space for creativity. But this is the study. Jim works here. Jim said he doesn't mind. Right, sweetheart?" Jim, walking past, nodded. "Yes, Mom, go ahead." Nell looked at her husband. "You didn't even ask me." "Nell, what's the big deal? The study was empty anyway. My documents are there. My things." "I didn't touch anything," Zanta cut in. "I packed everything neatly into a box. It's right there, in the corner." Nell walked over to the corner and saw the box. She opened it. Her documents, books, notebooks were really there. All dumped together, carelessly. She closed the box and left the study. Jim called after her. "Nell, what's wrong?" She didn't answer. She went upstairs, sat on the bed, and took out her phone. She wanted to call her mom, but changed her mind. "I won't upset her," she thought. That same evening, Zanta announced over dinner. "Kids, I've been thinking. What if I move in with you for good?" Nell choked on her water. Jim froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "Well, think about it yourselves. I've already been living here for 3 weeks. I've settled in. I still haven't found an apartment. Everything is either too expensive or inconvenient. And this house is big, plenty of space. I'm not in the way, am I?" Nell opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Jim lowered his eyes and poked at his mashed potatoes with his fork. "Mom, well, we need to think about it." "What is there to think about?" Zanta leaned forward, her gaze hard. "You wouldn't throw your own mother out. I raised you alone after the divorce, gave my whole life to you. Now it's hard for me to be alone, my health isn't what it used to be. Are you really going to refuse me?" Just what?" Her voice turned cold. "Or is your wife against it?" Both of them turned to Nell. She sat there with her hands clenched into fists, staring at her plate. "Nell, you're not against it, are you?" Zanta smiled, but the smile was predatory. "We'll become friends. I'll teach you everything. I'll be like a real mother to you." "I already have a real mother," Nell forced out. Well, yes, of course you do, but she doesn't live with you. And I'll help around the house, look after the grandkids when they come. Nell stood up from the table without finishing her dinner. Excuse me, I'm not feeling well. She went up to the bedroom and lay down on the bed. She could hear the conversation continuing downstairs, voices muffled, but the tone clear. Zanta was persuading. Jim was resisting weakly. Half an hour later, he came into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. Nell, I didn't agree. I said we'd think about it. You didn't say no? She's my mother. I can't just throw her out. But you can help her find an apartment, rent a decent one, pay extra if needed. We don't have extra money. We have a house she wants to take over. Jim sighed and rubbed his face. Nell, not now, okay? I'm tired. He lay down, turned away. A few minutes later, he was already snoring. Nell lay awake until morning. One thought kept spinning in her head: what is happening? Why has my house stopped being mine? The next day, Nell came home from work earlier than usual. She stepped onto the porch and heard voices from the living room. Jim and Zanta were talking. She froze by the door and listened. Son, I'm serious. I have nowhere to go. You wouldn't throw your mother out, would you? No, Mom, but Nell. Nell will get used to it. She's young, she'll adjust. The main thing is to firmly explain who's in charge here. Mom, this is her house. Jim, you're a man. The head of the family. If you say I'm staying, she'll accept it. But if you hesitate, she'll walk all over you. Mom, I don't know. Son, think about it. I'll help with the house, cook, clean. It'll be easier for you. And Nell can work and bring in money. That's reasonable, isn't it? Nell pressed her back against the wall. Her chest tightened. Her hands were shaking. She pushed the door open and walked into the living room. Jim and his mother turned and fell silent. Nell, you're back already? Jim jumped up and smiled guiltily. I am. She looked at both of them. So the decision has already been made? What decision? He tried to look confused. That your mother is staying here permanently. Zanta stood up and squared her shoulders. Nell, we're adults. Let's discuss this calmly. There's nothing to discuss. This is my house. My mother gave it to me, and I did not agree to anyone living here permanently. But Jim is your husband, and I'm his mother. Family should be together. Family is Jim and me. You are a guest. The mother-in-law's face turned to stone. Her voice became sharp. A guest. I see. So a mother means nothing to her son? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. Zanta stepped forward. You want to separate me from my son, but it won't work. Jim, tell her. Jim's eyes darted between his wife and his mother. He stayed silent. Jim. Nell turned to him. Say something. He opened his mouth, closed it. Then muttered, Nell, let's talk about this later, okay? Calmly, without emotion. Nell stepped back as if she'd been slapped. She looked at her husband and didn't recognize him. A stranger stood before her, someone unable to protect his wife, unable to put his mother in her place. She turned and walked toward the door. Nell, where are you going? Jim called after her. She didn't answer. She left the house, walked to the gate, got into her car, started the engine, and drove away. She drove around the city aimlessly until she stopped in front of the house on Maple Street. She went up to her mom's place. Laura opened the door, saw her daughter's face tear-streaked, lost, and hugged her without asking anything. Come in, sweetheart. You can tell me if you want. Nell went into the kitchen and sat down at the table. Her mom put the kettle on and took out some cookies. Mom, I can't handle this, Nell forced out. She's taken over the whole house. Jim can't say no to her. I feel like I don't belong. Don't belong. Laura sat across from her and took her hands. Nell, you do belong. It's your house, your property. And if your husband can't protect your boundaries, then you'll protect them yourself. How? Wait a little. Watch closely. People show their true selves when they think they've already won. And then you'll act. Nell nodded, finished her tea, hugged her mom, and drove back. When she returned home, 2 more suitcases were standing in the entryway. New ones. Zanta came out of the living room in a raspberry-colored puffer jacket and smiled. "Oh, Nell, you're back. I decided to bring the rest of my things. If I'm living here, I need to settle in properly." Nell looked at the suitcases, then at her mother-in-law. Zanta stood there like a monument, confident, triumphant. Jim hovered behind her, not lifting his eyes. Something snapped inside Nell's chest. But she smiled. Coldly. Calmly. "Of course, Zanta. If you're living here." She went upstairs, lay down on the bed, took out her phone, and texted her mom, "Come tomorrow. I think the moment you talked about has come." Laura replied, "I will." Nell turned off her phone and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. The morning started with banging in the kitchen. Zanta was clattering pots from 6 a.m., humming something cheerful, clearly pleased with life. Nell lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Jim was already up and downstairs. Their voices and laughter drifted up. She got up, got dressed, and went down. In the kitchen, her mother-in-law was frying pancakes. Jim sat at the table with a cup of coffee, scrolling on his phone. "Good morning, Nell." Zanta turned and waved the spatula. "Want some pancakes?" "I made them with milk, just how Jim likes." "No, thank you." Nell poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter. "Oh, come on, at least try one. I spent so much time on them." "I said I won't." Zanta pursed her lips and turned back to the stove. Jim looked up from his phone and glanced at his wife reproachfully. "Nell, Mom tried." Nell said nothing, finished her coffee, put the cup in the sink, and left the kitchen. Her mom was supposed to arrive by lunchtime. She just had to wait. The day dragged on endlessly. Nell tried to do chores, but everywhere she turned, she ran into her mother-in-law's presence. In the living room, Zanta had draped her crocheted doilies over the armrests of the sofa and placed a little vase with artificial flowers on the coffee table. In the hallway, the raspberry-colored puffer jacket hung on the rack, taking up half the space. In the bathroom, the shelf was packed with creams, shampoos, bottles with strange labels. Nell went into the study, the former study. Zanta was sitting at the sewing machine, stitching something red with ruffles. She looked up. "Oh, Nell, do you need something?" "My documents." "They're in a box." "Oh yes, in the corner." "Just be careful, there's fabric on top, don't stain it." Nell took the box, carried it to her bedroom, and closed the door. She sat on the bed and opened it. Inside was the house ownership certificate. Her passport. Old diplomas. Everything was tossed together, some papers wrinkled. She carefully spread them out on the bed, took a photo of the certificate, and sent it to her mom with a message, "Here's the document. It's in my name." Laura replied, "Good. I'll be there soon." At noon, her mom arrived. Nell met her at the gate and hugged her tightly. "Everything will be fine, sweetheart," Laura whispered. "The main thing is to stay calm. Don't yell, don't cry. Just listen and watch. I'm scared. Don't be. The truth is on your side. And the law too." They went into the house. Zanta came out of the living room, saw Laura, and forced a smile. "Oh, Laura, visiting again? You should have warned me, I would have cooked something." "No need." Laura took off her jacket and hung it up. "I won't be long." "Well, come in, come in. Make yourself at home." The mother-in-law headed toward the kitchen, tossing over her shoulder, "Though, of course, the house isn't really yours anymore." Nell flinched. Laura placed a hand on her shoulder, quiet, reassuring. They went into the living room and sat on the sofa. Zanta brought tea and set it on the table with a light thud. "Here you go." "Sorry, no cookies, I didn't have time to buy any." "Nell, you should have gone to the store if guests were coming." "I'm not a guest," Laura said calmly. "I'm the mother of the owner of this house." Zanta smirked and sat down in the armchair opposite them. The owner, Laura, but you understand that after the wedding everything is shared. Nell is Jim's wife now, so the house belongs to both of them. The house was registered in Nell's name before the wedding. It's her personal property. The mother-in-law's face twitched. She leaned back and crossed her arms. So what? Family is one whole. Jim has the right to live here, which means I do too. You are a guest, Laura repeated. Nell let you stay temporarily, but it seems you've forgotten that. I haven't forgotten anything, Zanta snapped. I'm Jim's mother, and I have the right to be near my son. You do, but not in someone else's house as the lady of it. Zanta jumped up from the chair, her face turning red. Someone else's? My son lives here. That means I can too. Laura stayed seated, calmly sipping her tea. You can if Nell allows it, and if you behave like a guest, not the owner. And who are you to tell me what to do? The mother of the homeowner. And I won't let you take over someone else's property. At that moment, the front door slammed. Jim came home from work. He walked into the living room and froze at the scene, his mother standing red-faced, Laura calm, Nell pale. What's going on? He looked from one to the other. Jim. Zanta rushed to him. She's throwing me out. Laura said I don't belong here. Jim hugged his mother and looked at his mother-in-law with displeasure. Laura, why are you saying this? Mom lives with us, we agreed on that. We didn't agree on anything, Nell stood up. You said she'd stay for a couple of weeks. It's been 3. She isn't planning to leave. Nell, but she hasn't found an apartment. Because she never looked for one, Nell's voice trembled. She planned from the start to stay here forever. So what? Jim straightened up and let go of his mother. She's my family. I can't leave my mom alone. But this is my house. Our house, he raised his voice. You're my wife. Everything is shared. Laura stood up from the sofa, took a folder out of her bag, and placed it on the table. Jim, this is the ownership certificate. The house is registered to Nell. Before the wedding. By law, it's her personal property, not joint marital property. Jim took the folder, opened it, skimmed the pages. His face went pale. But I thought. You thought the house automatically became yours, Laura finished. But it didn't. Nell has full legal rights to decide what happens to it. And if she asks your mother to move out, your mother must leave. Zanta snatched the folder from her son's hands and slammed it onto the table. So that's how it is. You set us up. Gave the house and kept a trump card up your sleeve. I didn't set anyone up, Laura turned to her. I gave my daughter a house so she'd have her own place to live. I didn't think you'd try to take it over. Take it over? Zanta stepped forward and jabbed a finger at Laura. I'm helping. I cook, I clean, I take care of my son. Of a son who is a grown man and has a wife, Laura shot back. Zanta, let Jim go. Let him live his own life. Never. The mother-in-law turned to her son. Jim, tell them. Tell them you need me. Jim stood there, crumpling the folder in his hands, silent. Jim, Nell called softly. Say something. He lifted his eyes, looked at her, then at his mother, then back at his wife. I don't know, he forced out. You don't know? Nell stepped toward him. You don't know who matters more to you, your wife or your mother. It's not that simple. It is that simple. She raised her voice. Either you're my family, or you're hers. Nell, don't make me choose. I'm not making you. You already chose. 3 weeks ago, when you brought her here. Jim stepped back as if he'd been slapped. Zanta grabbed his hand. Son, don't listen to her. She wants to tear us apart. But we'll manage, won't we? You and I have always managed. Nell looked at them, her husband and her mother-in-law, holding hands like co-conspirators. And something inside her broke for good. That's it, she said quietly. Enough. She turned to her mom. Mom, let's go. Laura nodded and took her bag. They headed for the door. Nell, where are you going? Jim called. To my mom's. Live here together if you're so happy with each other. Nell, wait. She didn't turn around. She walked out of the house and toward the gate. Laura walked beside her, holding her arm. Sweetheart, are you sure? Yes, Mom. I can't do this anymore. Let them live in my house, and I'll stay with you for now. I'll think about what to do next. They got into Laura's car and drove away. Nell watched in the rearview mirror as the house grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared around the bend. Her chest felt empty, but along with the emptiness came relief. The next 3 days, Nell stayed at her mom's place on Maple Street. She slept on the couch in the living room, went to work, came back. Jim called every day, sent messages. Nell, please come back. We'll talk everything through. I miss you. She didn't reply. She just read them and deleted them. Laura didn't pressure her or ask questions. She was just there, cooked her favorite soup, stroked her hair before bed, turned on old movies in the evenings. On the 4th day, Nell said, Mom, I want to go back. Laura raised an eyebrow. To the house? Yes. It's my house, and I won't let it be taken from me. Are you sure? Jim and his mother are there. I'm sure. It's time to end this circus. Laura nodded and smiled. Then let's go together. I'll support you. They arrived Saturday morning. Nell opened the door with her key and went in. The entryway smelled of fried potatoes and something sweet. Zanta's voice drifted from the kitchen. She was humming. Nell went into the living room. Jim was sitting on the couch, watching TV. When he saw his wife, he jumped up. Nell, you're back? I am. She looked at him coldly. This is my house, remember? He dropped his eyes guiltily. Nell, I'm sorry. I wanted what was best. I know. You always want what's best. The question is for whom? Zanta came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. When she saw Nell and Laura, her face fell. Oh, you're back? I thought you'd moved out for good. No. Nell took off her jacket and hung it up. This is my house. I'm not moving out. Well then. That's good. The mother-in-law forced a smile. So we'll all live together. One big family. No, Laura said quietly. We won't. Zanta turned to her. And why is that? Because this isn't your house, Zanta, and it's time for you to move out. The mother-in-law's face turned to stone. She turned to her son. Jim, do you hear this? They're throwing me out. No one is throwing you out, Laura continued calmly. You're being asked to vacate someone else's home, where you are staying without the owner's consent. But Jim is not the owner. Nell is. Jim's eyes darted between his mother and his wife. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Jim. Zanta rushed to him and grabbed his hand. Son, tell them I'm staying. You won't throw your own mother out, will you? Mom, You're really going to let them kick me out? After everything I've done for you? Mom, the house isn't mine. But you live here. You're the man of the house. No, Nell stepped forward. He's not the owner. I am. And I'm asking you, Zanta, to pack your things and leave. The mother-in-law turned to her, eyes blazing. How dare you? I'm your husband's mother. So what? Does that give you the right to take over my house? Take over? I helped. I cooked, I cleaned. You promised to stay for 2 weeks. It's been 3. You stayed. Because I have nowhere to go. That's your problem. Nell felt anger rising inside her. You're an adult woman. Find a place to rent. With what money? My pension is nothing. Ask your son to help. Zanta looked at Jim. He stood there with his head down, not lifting his eyes. Son? Her voice trembled. Jim, say something. Mom, I can help with rent. Find something inexpensive. Inexpensive? She recoiled from him. You want to stick me in some dump? Mom, we don't have money for an expensive apartment. But there's a house. A huge house with plenty of space. It's not my house, Jim repeated quietly. Zanta froze and looked at her son for a long moment, then slowly nodded. I see. So your wife matters more than your mother. Mom, that's not dash, that's exactly what it is, she raised her voice. I raised you alone, gave you my whole life. And now? Now you choose her? Laura stepped in. Enough with the manipulation. Jim is an adult. He has his own family now. It's time to let go. Never. The mother-in-law turned on Laura. This is your fault. You gave her the house and set us up. I gave my daughter a house, Laura replied calmly. So she would have her own place to live. And you decided to take it. I didn't take anything. You did. You took over the master bedroom, the study, the kitchen. You acted like the owner. But you are not the owner. Zanta twitched as if she wanted to strike, but held herself back. Her fists clenched, her face turned dark red. Fine, she hissed. Fine. Then I'll tell the truth. Jim, admit it to them. Admit what? Jim lifted his head, pale. What we planned. That I was supposed to move in right after the wedding. That we agreed on it. Nell froze and looked at her husband. Is that true? Jim stayed silent, staring at the floor. Jim, answer me. Is it true? It was. Hard for her to be alone. I promised she'd move in, just not right away. Later. When later? In a couple of months. Nell stepped back. Her chest tightened. So you lied to me. From the very beginning. Nell, I didn't lie. I just postponed the conversation. You lied, she raised her voice. You knew she was going to move in and you kept quiet. I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid you wouldn't agree. Of course I wouldn't agree. This is my house. Our house. Jim shouted. You're my wife. Everything is shared. No. Nell stepped toward him. This is my house. My mom gave it to me, and you have no right to bring just anyone in here. My mother is not just anyone. Your mother is a stranger to me. Zanta stepped in and moved closer to Nell. A stranger? I've done more for you in these weeks than your precious mommy ever has. You've done more? Nell turned on her. You took over my house, pushed me out of my bedroom, ordered everyone around like the owner. That's what you call help? I was putting things in order. You don't know how to run a household. I know perfectly well. Just not by your stupid rules. Stupid? The mother-in-law stepped closer, her face inches from Nell's. I'll teach you how life works, girl. Enough. Laura stepped between them. Zanta, pack your things and leave. Immediately. I'm not going anywhere. You are. Or we call the police. The mother-in-law froze. She looked at Laura, then at Nell, then at Jim. Son, her voice trembled. Tell them. Jim stayed silent, head down, fists clenched. Jim. Zanta went to him and grabbed his shoulders. Son, this is how your wife treats me. You'll allow this? He lifted his eyes, looked at his wife, then back at his mother. Mom, he said quietly, maybe it really would be better to live separately. For now. Zanta recoiled as if struck. So, you're against me too? I'm not against you. The house isn't mine. And Nell is right. Nell is right? The mother-in-law stepped back again. So the wife is right, and the mother isn't? Mom, try to understand. I understand everything. She turned and went to the stairs. Fine. I'll leave. Since I'm not needed here. She went upstairs and slammed the door to her room. Nell stood there, breathing heavily. Jim wouldn't lift his eyes. Laura stayed silent, watching. 10 minutes later, Zanta came down with 2 bags. Her face was stone, her eyes red. Call a taxi, she snapped. Jim took out his phone and ordered one. It'll be here in 5 minutes, he muttered. The mother-in-law put the bags down and sat on the couch. She sat in silence, staring at the wall. Nell stood by the window, looking outside. Her hands were shaking. She wanted to cry, scream, break something, but she held on. The taxi arrived. The driver honked. Zanta stood up, took her bags, and looked at her son. "Remember this day, Jim. Remember how you betrayed your mother." Mom dashed quiet. She raised her hand. "I don't want to hear it." She left the house without saying goodbye. Jim walked her to the taxi, helped load the bags, and stood there until the car disappeared around the corner. He came back inside. Nell was still by the window. Laura sat on the couch, drinking tea. Jim closed the door and leaned against it, silent. "What now?" he finally asked. Nell turned and looked at him. "I don't know. You lied to me. You planned to secretly move your mother in. That's betrayal, Jim. I didn't want to dash, but you did. I'll fix it, Nell. I'll give her money for an apartment. We'll live alone." "Jim." "I don't know," Nell said quietly. "I need time to think." She walked past him and went upstairs. She entered the bedroom, the master bedroom, finally hers again. She sat on the bed and covered her face with her hands. Then the tears came. Nell cried for a long time, quietly, into the pillow, from betrayal, from pain, and from relief. Voices came from downstairs. Jim and Laura were talking. Nell didn't listen. She didn't care. Half an hour later, her mom came up, sat beside her, and hugged her. "Cry, sweetheart. Let it all out. It'll be easier afterward." "Mom, what should I do?" "It's up to you. Just know you are not alone. I'm with you." Nell pressed against her mom like she did as a child. Laura stroked her hair and softly hummed a lullaby. Downstairs, the door slammed. Jim left. That evening, Nell went down to the kitchen. Her mom was making dinner. The house smelled like home, warm, calm, safe. "Mom, stay here," Nell said. "For good." Laura turned around and smiled. "Are you sure?" "Yes. This is my house, and I want you here with me." "And Jim?" Nell shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe he'll come back, maybe not. But for now I want to be with you." Laura hugged her daughter and kissed the top of her head. "All right, sweetheart. All right." It was getting dark outside. The house was quiet and peaceful. For the first time in 3 weeks, Nell felt like she could breathe freely. Her phone vibrated. A message from Jim: "I'm at a friend's place. I'll stay there tonight. Sorry." Nell read it and didn't reply. She placed the phone face down. "Tea?" her mom asked. "Yes." They drank tea on the veranda, wrapped in a blanket, looking at the stars, sitting in silence. The house was theirs again. But Nell knew this wasn't the end. A conversation with Jim still lay ahead, and a decision whether to save the marriage or end it. But tonight, she rested, next to her mom, in her own home. Tomorrow would bring new answers. Jim came back the next day around lunchtime. He knocked on the door timidly, as if it were someone else's house. Nell opened it and let him in without a word. He went into the living room and sat on the edge of the couch, clasping his hands between his knees. "Nell, we need to talk." "We do." She sat in the armchair across from him, keeping her distance. Laura came out of the kitchen, nodded to both of them, and went to the veranda to give them space. Jim was silent for a long time, choosing his words, then exhaled. "I understand everything now. I was wrong. I shouldn't have lied about my mom. I shouldn't have. It's just that she pressured me so much. Called every day, cried, said I'd abandoned her, that after the divorce from my dad I was all she had. And I couldn't say no." Nell stayed silent, looking at her husband. Pity stirred in her chest, but anger came with it. "Jim, you're married. You have a wife. I was everything my mom had too after my parents divorced. But she doesn't cling to me, doesn't manipulate me, doesn't demand that I give up my life for her. I know. Your mom, Laura, she's different. It's not about moms. It's about you. You let your mother control your life. Jim rubbed his face with his hands. I don't know how to live differently. It's always been like this. She always knew what was best for me, where to study, who to be friends with, how to dress, and who to marry. Nell shot back. He flinched. No. I chose myself. She even liked you. At first. And then she realized I wouldn't let her run our life, and that's when it started. She just wanted to be close. She wanted to take my house. Nell raised her voice. Did you hear what she yelled yesterday? That you planned everything in advance, that she was supposed to move in here and take the master bedroom? She exaggerated. No, Jim. She told the truth. You wanted to push me out of my own house, turn me into a guest, and maybe later kick me out completely. Jim froze, his face going pale. No, I never wanted to kick you out. But you wanted your mother to be in charge of the house. For her to be the mistress, and me what, the help? Nell. Don't lie, Jim. Not to me, not to yourself. You knew this would happen. And you stayed silent. He lowered his head, not denying it. He sat there hunched over, beaten. Nell looked at him and felt something inside her fade: love, pity, hope, all together. I don't know, Jim, if we can go on. He jerked his head up. Nell, no. Give me a chance. I'll change. Mom is gone. We'll live just the two of us. I promise. You promise? Like you promised she'd stay for 2 weeks? I'll keep this one. I won't let you down. And when she starts calling again, crying, demanding? Jim hesitated. Nell saw it and gave a bitter smile. See? Even now you're not sure you can say no to her. I'll try. You'll try. She stood up. Jim, I need time. To think. To understand whether I want to live with a man who can't protect me from his own mother. How much time? I don't know. A week. A month. And where will I live? Nell shrugged. With a friend? With your mom? I don't know. But not here, not until I figure myself out. Jim stood up and stepped toward her. Nell, this is my house too. No, she cut him off sharply. This is my house. Legally and in reality. And I'm asking you to move out. Temporarily. He froze, as if he couldn't believe what he'd heard, then slowly nodded. Okay. I'll move out. But I'll wait. And hope. He went upstairs, packed his things into a bag, and came back down. He stopped by the door. Nell, I really do love you. I know. She looked at him calmly. But love isn't enough if there's no respect. He nodded and left. The door closed softly. Nell stood in the entryway, staring at the closed door. There were no tears, just emptiness, and a strange, almost frightening sense of relief. Laura came in from the veranda and hugged her daughter from behind. Well done. Mom, I kicked him out. You protected yourself. That's not the same thing. Nell turned and buried her face in her mom's shoulder. What if I made a mistake? What if he really changes? Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. But until he learns to say no to his mother, it's impossible to live with him. You did the right thing. They stood there, hugging, in the middle of the entryway. Outside, the wind rustled, pushing yellow leaves along the path. The next few days passed in a strange calm. Nell went to work and came back home. Laura cooked dinner, they watched TV shows, drank tea on the veranda, talked about everything and nothing: work, neighbors, the news. Jim called every evening. Nell answered, listened to his apologies, promises, pleas. She replied briefly, neither giving hope nor cutting things off completely. On the 4th day, Zanta called. Nell saw the number on the screen and wanted to decline, but curiosity won. She answered. Hello? Nell, her mother-in-law's voice sounded tight, almost through clenched teeth. It's me. I'm listening. I wanted to talk. Is that okay? Go ahead. A pause. Zanta was clearly choosing her words with difficulty. I'm renting an apartment. A 1-bedroom. Jim is helping with the rent. That's good. Yes. It is. Another pause. Nell, I wanted to say. I was wrong. Nell froze. She hadn't expected that. Wrong? Yes. I shouldn't have behaved the way I did. In your house. It really is your house, and I had no right to act like it was mine. Her voice trembled on the last words. Nell stayed silent, unsure what to say. I was just scared, Zanta continued more quietly. After the divorce, I was left alone. Jim was everything I had. And when he got married, I was afraid I'd lose him completely, that he'd forget about me. You don't lose a son when he gets married, Nell said softly. His life just changes. And you need to accept that. I know. I do now. Zanta sighed. Nell, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I understand you probably won't forgive me. But I want you to know I won't interfere in your life anymore. I promise. All right. And one more thing. Don't leave Jim. He's a fool, weak, doesn't know how to say no. But he loves you. He really does. Nell bit her lip, a lump rose in her throat. I'll think about it. Thank you. Zanta hung up. Nell lowered the phone and looked at her mom. Laura was sitting in the kitchen, pretending to read the newspaper, but clearly listening. She apologized, Nell said quietly. I heard. Do you think she meant it? Laura shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe she's just afraid her son will turn away from her completely. Either way, it's a step. And what should I do about Jim? That's for you to decide, sweetheart. I can't choose for you. Nell sat down at the table and rested her head on her hands. Her thoughts were a mess: love, hurt, anger, pity, hope. Everything tangled together into a knot she couldn't untie. A week later, Nell met Jim. She suggested a cafe in the city center, neutral ground, no memories. He arrived early and waited by the window, looking worn out, unshaven, in a wrinkled shirt. When Nell walked in, he jumped up and smiled uncertainly. Hi. Hi. She sat across from him and ordered coffee. They were silent until the waiter brought the drinks. Then Jim spoke first. Thank you for agreeing to meet. We needed to talk. I know. Nell, I've thought a lot this week. I realized I was a complete idiot. You were. I talked to my mom. For a long time, seriously. I told her I won't let her interfere in our life anymore. That if she tries to manipulate me again, I'll stop communicating with her. And how did she react? She cried, yelled, then calmed down. Said she understood. Promised not to interfere. Jim, promises are just words. I need actions. I know, he leaned forward. That's why I want to prove it. Nell, give me a chance. Come back. Let's start from scratch. Just you and me. No mom, no interference. Nell sipped her coffee, looking at him. She saw sincerity in his eyes, desperation, hope. And if she starts calling every day again, demanding attention, I'll explain that I have my own family. That I love her, but I can't live her life. And if she gets sick, says she's unwell, that she needs you? Jim hesitated, then exhaled. Then I'll go to her. Check on her, help. But I won't bring her into our home without your consent. Nell nodded. It was something, at least. Jim, I don't know if I can trust you again. I'll earn your trust. I promise. Another promise. But I'll keep it. Give me time. A month, 2, 6 months. I'll prove it. Nell finished her coffee and stood up. All right. But you'll keep living separately until I see that you've really changed. How long? I don't know. Maybe a month. Maybe longer. Okay. Jim nodded without arguing. Okay. The important thing is that you're giving me a chance. They walked out of the cafe. Jim tried to hug her, but Nell stepped back. Not yet. Too soon. He lowered his arms and nodded in understanding. I'll call? Call. They went their separate ways. Nell walked to her car, feeling a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Whether she had given him a chance or made a mistake only time would tell. Another week later, something happened that Nell didn't expect. One evening, the doorbell rang. She opened it and saw Zanta standing on the doorstep, no raspberry puffer jacket, just a simple gray coat, a bag in her hands. "Hello, Nell." Her voice was quiet, without the old assertiveness. "Hello." Nell froze, not inviting her in. "I brought something," Zanta said, holding out the bag. "It's an apple pie. I baked it. Using your recipe. Well, the way you and your mom make it." Nell took the bag automatically, not fully understanding what was happening. "Why?" "I just wanted to." The mother-in-law lowered her eyes. "Nell, I'm not asking you to let me back in. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But I want you to know I am not your enemy anymore. Zanta. Or just Ella, if you prefer." Nell blinked. It was too unexpected. "All right. Zanta. I rented an apartment and found a job. At an atelier I sew custom orders. I like it. I have my own life now. And I want Jim to have his. With you. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I finally understood. Too late, but I did. A son isn't my property. He's an adult and has the right to his own family. And I have to learn to live on my own, without him." Zanta turned and headed for the gate, then stopped halfway and looked back. "If he messes up again, hit him. He deserves it. But give him a chance, he really does love you." She left without waiting for an answer. Nell stood there holding the bag, watching her go. Something warm stirred in her chest, something that felt like hope. She went inside, put the bag on the table, and took out the pie, smooth, golden, smelling of cinnamon and apples. Exactly like the ones her mom baked. Like the ones she herself baked. Laura came out of the room, saw the pie, and raised her eyebrows. "What's this?" "From Zanta. She brought it. Apologized." "Sort of." Her mom stepped closer, looked at the pie, and smiled wryly. "Well, would you look at that? Miracles do happen." "Mom, do you think she was sincere?" Laura shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe she's just afraid of losing her son completely. Either way, it's an attempt. And that's already something." Nell nodded, cut a piece of pie, and tasted it. Good. Not exactly like her mom's, but close. "You know, Mom," she said thoughtfully, "maybe I really should give him a chance." "That's for you to decide, sweetheart." "I will. But under supervision. If he messes up again, that's it. The end." "Right." Laura hugged her daughter by the shoulders. "You've grown stronger, Nell. I'm proud of you." They sat in the kitchen, eating pie and drinking tea. Outside, it got dark, streetlights flickered on. 3 weeks passed. Jim called every day, asked how she was, told her about his own days. He didn't push for meetings, didn't pressure her. He was just there at a distance, but present. Zanta didn't show up again. She called once, asked how Nell was, wished her a good day. And that was it. No manipulation, no hints. Nell felt something frozen inside her slowly begin to thaw. The hurt didn't disappear, but it softened, became bearable. One evening, Nell called Jim. "Come tomorrow. We'll talk." "I'll be there." Joy burst through his voice. "What time?" "By lunchtime. My mom will be home, so behave yourself." "I promise." She hung up and smiled to herself. Another promise. But this time, she wanted to believe. Jim arrived exactly at noon with a bouquet of roses for Nell and a box of chocolates for Laura. He looked nervous but put together. Clean-shaven, neatly dressed, smelling of cologne. They sat in the living room. Laura brewed tea, brought cookies, and settled into an armchair, unobtrusive, but close. Nell was grateful for the support. "Jim," she began calmly, "I've thought a lot and decided to give you one more chance." Her husband's face lit up. "Nell, thank you. I won't let you down." Wait, she raised her hand. There are conditions. What are they? First, your mom does not move into this house. Ever. Even visiting only with my consent, and no more than a weekend. Agreed. Second, if she starts manipulating you, you shut it down. Immediately. Firmly. No excuses. Agreed. Third, this house is mine. Legally and in reality. You live here, but the final word on any decision is mine. Jim was silent for a moment, then nodded. Agreed. And lastly, if you betray me again, lie to me, or hide something important, I'll file for divorce. No discussions. No second chances. He swallowed hard. Understood. It won't happen again. Nell looked at her mom. Laura nodded approvingly. All right, Nell exhaled. Then come back. But on a trial basis. 3 months. If everything is fine during that time, we'll continue living together. If not, we'll part ways. 3 months, Jim repeated. I'll manage. You'll see. He held out his hand. Nell looked at it, then took it. They shook hands not like lovers, but like partners signing a contract. One more thing, Nell added. My mom will keep living here. You're okay with that? Jim blinked, then smiled. I'm okay with it. Laura is great. I'm comfortable with her. Laura smiled wryly. Thank you, Jim. I was comfortable with you too until the circus started. The circus is over, he nodded seriously. I promise. Jim came back the next day, brought his things, and carefully put them in the closet, taking exactly half the space, no more. He behaved quietly, cautiously, like a guest. Nell watched, evaluated. So far, everything was fine. That evening, the three of them, Nell, Jim, and Laura, had dinner together. They talked about work, the news, weekend plans. Calmly, like a family. After dinner, Jim washed the dishes without being asked. Laura raised an eyebrow in surprise but said nothing. At night, they went to bed together, in the master bedroom that was theirs again. Jim hugged Nell gently and pulled her close. Thank you, he whispered, for the chance. Don't let me down, she replied. I won't. They lay there in silence, listening to each other's breathing. Outside, the wind rustled and rain tapped on the roof. Nell felt herself slowly relax. Maybe things really would work out. Maybe. A week passed. Then another. Jim kept his word and behaved flawlessly. He helped around the house, avoided conflicts, spoke to his mom briefly on the phone, without fawning. When Zanta tried to complain about being lonely, he calmly said, Mom, you have your life, and I have mine. Come visit on Sunday if you want, but not for long. Nell heard the conversation from the hallway and smiled. So he could do it, when he wanted to. Zanta came on Sunday with a cake, a smile, no puffer jacket, and no arrogance. She greeted Nell politely and Laura warmly. Laura, how are you? How's your health? Thank you, Zanta, I'm doing well. The four of them drank tea on the veranda. Zanta talked about her job at the atelier, about orders, about new people she'd met. She didn't give advice, didn't criticize. When it was time to leave, she said goodbye to everyone and hugged Jim. Take care of your wife, son. I do, Mom. She left in a taxi. Nell watched her go, feeling a strange sense of relief. Maybe people really can change when life forces them to choose. 2 months passed. The trial period was coming to an end. Jim didn't mess up even once. He was attentive, caring, respectful of boundaries. Nell slowly thawed, started smiling at him again, hugging him on her own, making plans for the future. One evening, they were sitting on the veranda, just the two of them. Laura had gone to a friend's birthday. They were drinking wine, watching the sunset. Nell, Jim turned to her, the trial period is almost over. Do you think I passed? Nell looked at him. He had grown more confident, learned to say no, learned to protect his wife. You passed, she said quietly. You did well. So we're continuing? We are. Jim hugged her and kissed her temple. I won't mess up again. I promise. I know. She leaned into him. But if you do, it's over. Got it? Got it. They sat there, holding each other, watching the sunset. The sky turned pink, then purple, then dark. Stars came out. Nell, what if we do some renovations? Jim suggested. Update the house, make it truly ours. Ours, she repeated. Yes. Let's do it. They started planning what wallpaper to choose, what furniture to buy, how to redo the kitchen. They talked, dreamed, laughed. The house filled with life again, the right kind of life, without manipulation, without betrayal, without lies. 6 months later, Laura announced that she wanted to move back to her apartment on Maple Street. Mom, why? Nell didn't understand. You're happy here. I am, sweetheart. But you need space. You're a young family, you need to build your life without me. But you're not in the way. I'm not. Laura smiled. Still, you need time, just the two of you. And I'm used to my apartment. The neighbors, the street, my routine. Nell wanted to argue, but saw the determination in her mom's eyes. She understood it was pointless. All right. But you'll come every weekend. Promise? I promise. Laura packed up and moved back. The house felt emptier. Quieter, calmer, and a little sadder. Do you miss her? Jim asked, hugging his wife in the kitchen. Yes, Nell admitted, but Mom is right. We need to learn to live on our own. We will. He kissed the top of her head. We'll be fine. A year passed since the wedding. Nell and Jim threw a small celebration. They invited friends and relatives and set the table in the garden. Zanta came with a new companion, a pleasant-looking man of about 55, a retired engineer. She introduced him as Craig. We met at the atelier, she explained, blushing slightly. He ordered a suit. We started talking. Nell exchanged a glance with Jim. He shrugged and smiled. I'm happy for you, Mom. Really? Zanta beamed. I was so afraid you'd be against it. Why would I be? You have your own life. She hugged her son and sniffled. Thank you, my boy. Craig turned out to be a pleasant man, calm, polite, with a sense of humor. At the table he told stories from his life, joked, made everyone laugh. Zanta sat beside him, glowing with happiness. Nell watched and thought, this was the solution. Her mother-in-law needed her own life, her own person, not the role of a shadow clinging to her son. That evening, after the guests left, Nell and Jim sat on the veranda, clearing the table. You know, she said thoughtfully, it feels like everything finally worked out. It did, Jim nodded. You were right. Mom needed a push to start living her own life. And you needed a push to learn how to say no to her. He smiled. A painful push, but effective. They laughed and hugged. Jim, Nell pulled back and looked at him seriously. I want a baby. He froze, then smiled wide. Really? Really? But only if you promise your mom won't interfere with raising the child. I promise. He picked her up and spun her around. I promise. I promise. I promise. They stood in the middle of the veranda under the starry sky and, for the first time in a long while, felt truly happy. The house filled with laughter, plans, and hope. The right house, with the right people, with the right boundaries. Another year later, their daughter was born, Alice, tiny, with gray eyes and dark hair. Nell held her in her arms, looked at her little face, and thought, this is happiness. Laura came on the day they were discharged, bringing pies and baby clothes. She took her granddaughter in her arms and pressed her close. Beautiful. My beautiful girl. Zanta came a week later with a huge plush bunny and a box of rattles. Shyly, she asked, may I hold her? Nell nodded. The mother-in-law took Alice carefully, sat in an armchair, and gazed at her granddaughter with adoration. She looks like Jim did as a baby, she whispered. Yes, she does, Nell agreed. Zanta looked up. Nell, thank you. For my granddaughter. For not holding a grudge. For letting me be a grandmother. You've changed, Zanta. You're different now. Life made me, the mother-in-law smiled wryly. But I'm glad. Truly glad. They sat together, the two grandmothers and the young mother, drinking tea, watching the sleeping Alice, talking about the future. Jim came into the room and hugged Nell from behind. How's it going here? Good. She turned and kissed him. Everything's good. He held her close, burying his face in her hair. I love you so much. I love you too. They stood there, holding each other, in the middle of the living room, in a house that had truly become theirs. With her mom nearby, her mother-in-law visiting, their daughter sleeping in the chair. Everything was in its place. Everyone knew their boundaries. Everyone was happy. Later that evening, when the guests had left, Nell went out onto the veranda, sat in a chair, wrapped herself in a blanket, and looked at the stars. Alice slept softly in the stroller nearby. Jim was asleep in the bedroom. Nell thought about the past year, about the pain, the struggle, the tears. About how close she came to losing her home, her husband, herself. About how she learned to protect what was hers, to say no, to set boundaries. The master bedroom. Back then it seemed like just a room, but it turned out to be a symbol. A symbol of power, control, and the right to decide. And now that bedroom was hers. Truly hers. Nell smiled and closed her eyes. The house breathed quietly around her. Her house, her fortress, her family. The master bedroom. She remembered her mom's words, wise, precise, saving. But it was never really about the bedroom. It was about the right to be the owner of her own life. And no one would ever take that right away again. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted, the wind rustled through the apple trees, Alice stirred in her sleep. Nell opened her eyes, looked at her daughter, then at the house glowing with warm light from within. Everything was right. Finally right. And it was true happiness.